The Legend of Zelda. What can I say about this series that hasn't already been said? The fantasy world, the mythical characters and creatures, the incredibly varied art styles, and innovative, reinventive gameplay. It is by far one of the most famous video game franchises ever made, and for a series that big, its fanbase feels like a cult following. Legend of Zelda fans love Legend of Zelda and will defend it with their lives. These people do not mess around. I wouldn't say I'm as big of a fan as the cult, but I love The Legend of Zelda. Growing up, I was always more of a Pokemon and Mario guy, still am, but as I've gotten older, I've grown really attached to series like Metroid and Zelda. I was definitely a Nintendo kid growing up, so it was kind of unavoidable. I feel like every generation of Nintendo consoles, there is a seminal Zelda entry that is one of the defining titles of that console. Link to the Past for SNES, Ocarina for N64, Wind Waker for GameCube. These games are some of the most popular and critically acclaimed games in Nintendo's catalog. And this might be a hot take, but personally, I think the best console for Zelda has to be the Nintendo Switch. Yes, the N64 has classic entries and the 3DS has new games and great remakes, but the Switch has it all and then some. With Breath of the Wild, the series became more accessible and widespread than with previous titles. The gorgeous art style, extremely influential open-world game design, and refreshed gameplay. For many gamers, this was the first Zelda game they ever completed fully, and that was the case for me. Every time I revisit this game, it makes me want to go grab some figs and recreate scenes from the game, but sadly, we never really got good figures from this game. There was like a 12-inch cloth goods figure and the Jack Specific one, but we never got a good 1/12 scale figure of Link from this game. Even Figma, who did figures from various different Zelda titles, didn't even touch this game, which is crazy to me. This has to be the most popular game on the Switch for years, and we never got good figures from it. And we still don't. I don't know if you were expecting a twist there, but seriously, no good Breath of the Wild figures, period. Well, in 2023, we got a new Zelda game, one that took the base of Breath of the Wild and built on it and turned it inside out. That game is Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game. Some would say just as good, if not better than Breath of the Wild. It fixed a lot of the problems its predecessor had and introduced some really cool game mechanics to the series. I bought this game on launch day and could not put it down for weeks. I thought it was amazing. And as a fan of video games and action figures, I prayed that an import company would finally deliver us some quality figures of our favorite sword fighter. We've gotten some great Figma Link figures before. I have the Skyward Sword figure, and I always really wanted the Link Between Worlds and Twilight Princess ones. Well, Figma heard our prayers and graciously blessed us with a look at a new Link figure, one based on the most recent Zelda game. And that is what we're going to be taking a look at today. Now, technically there are two versions of this guy, but between them, the figure itself is unchanged. There is the basic version and the DX version, with the only real difference between them being the packaging and the accessories. Also, personally, this is my first Figma figure I have bought in a really long time. I have a few, and I love the ones that I have, but I probably haven't gotten a new Figma since the red figure they did years ago. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of their output due to their limited articulation, and I'm excited to see if this Link changes my mind. First things first, the box is really nice. It has a nice matte feel and multiple layers of packaging. It just feels so premium. This DX version was not cheap, so to have this really nice feeling packaging is already a good sign. Also, this box is chunky, and it needs to be because it holds quite a few accessories. I love these little gold flourishes here. Since I'm looking at the DX version today, I'm not sure what the standard box will look like, but I really like the DX version. So I've been posing this guy and taking shots of him for the last couple days, and I gotta say, I really like this figure. He is really detailed, and more than you'd probably expect, and for Figma, that feels like a nice change, at least for what I'm used to. The whole figure is painted and looks great. No real missed paint apps or sloppy application anywhere, which I'm really grateful for. The whole figure has a painted feel. It's not just raw plastic, which makes it look better, but it kind of has this chalky feel across the whole thing, and I'm not crazy about it. But looks-wise, Good Smile did an incredible job. The sculpt here is basically perfect. I love how many details here are actually sculpted on. A lot of other lines will just paint these details on, but the fact that they are raised here makes the figure feel more accurate to the game. The raised symbols on the shoulder pads, shield, and the sheath are especially nice. This Link still looks animated, but in the best way. He looks like a render from a video game that was brought to life. There's so many small touches and details brought over from the game. The look is incredibly on model. Make no mistake, this figure is a Tears of the Kingdom Link, and looks-wise, he absolutely excels. I really love the paint and detailing, but the articulation honestly left me a bit underwhelmed. Maybe it's because I'm spoiled by companies like SH Figuarts that can cram crazy articulation into a $35 figure like this Tanjiro, But for this price, the articulation should be pretty much perfect. Good Smile needs to take notes on how to maximize articulation without sacrificing the sculpt, which is something they've gotten better at over the years, but they still have ways to go in my opinion. Even with these legs, I can kinda forgive it because it's just hard to have a well-sculpted skirt piece and full range of motion for the legs, but the arms, these arms are unforgivable. The lack of a bicep joint here is just awful. I hate when I have a pose in mind that I just can't hit because of something as limiting as this. The shoulders and armpit joints aren't bad, but I found myself having to readjust them quite often. When you have a character that's a sword fighter, uses a glider, and shoots a bow and arrow, your arm articulation needs to be on point. The elbow articulation is fine, they don't go in as far as I'd like, but it's not too bad. I'm just annoyed with how much stuff gets in the way of posing. In vanilla poses, Link looks pretty much perfect, but this limited range gets really frustrating after you mess with the figure for a while. Especially when you are paying over $75 for just the figure and a few parts. You can separate the torso from the legs, and I thought maybe you'd be able to remove this quiver belt piece, but sadly it's all sculpted together. The ab articulation here is just fine, nothing special, and the drop down hips are nice, but as I stated earlier, you don't get that much range due to this skirt piece, but for what it's worth, the double jointed knees articulate really well. A downside of the figure being almost fully painted is that if you push the articulation too far, parts get scuffed really easily or other paint gets rubbed off, and that's pretty frustrating. The hands are a little annoying. They put the joint kinda inside the thumb of the hand, which helps with the sword wielding poses, but it makes holding the shield and using his glider way more difficult than it should be in my opinion. The good parts of his articulation are good though. I know a lot of people reported having really tight joints, but I feel like mine are the perfect level of tightness. They hold a pose really well, but they're not too tight that I feel like I'm gonna break them. No real loose joints here. I like that the joints are standard level import joints. For those who don't know, Figma used to use these bulky single joint pieces for a long time, and I'm really happy to see them finally move away from those. They even included a ponytail hinge, which is extra, but makes head articulation so much easier, and I love it. They also moved away from the old Figma wrists where the joint was actually a part of each hand, and I much prefer this way. They also included 2 holes on his back for his stand and the many accessories that come with the DX version. Accessory-wise, they absolutely knocked it out of the park. The DX version is more expensive than the standard, but they make it worth it with the sheer variety that they include. If you're a fan of this game and not just Link, this is the version to get. So many items and fun details are brought over from the game, like this fused weapon or the different types of shields. I would have loved stuff to attach to your arrows like in the game, or a separate rock and stick so you could do a photo showing Link fusing them. I think my favorite of all the accessories is this damaged swappable arm. It's painted really well and looks great, and makes this Link stand out compared to his other looks. This might be a nitpick, but I think it's weird that the base version doesn't come with a bow, but he still comes with his giant quiver of arrows. The cape they include is really nice, and I love the variety it adds to his look. The clip functionality was really smart. Once this thing is on, it's not going anywhere. We get 2 swappable faceplates, my favorite being this yelling face. He just looks so angry, it's hilarious. Also, this Zonite rocket accessory thing is so sick, and the fact that you can attach it to his shield and recreate moments from the game is exactly why I got the DX version. This glider is really nice too. It feels really hefty, but not too heavy that he still can't support himself, and the hands are sculpted onto the handles, which is convenient. It's really easy to just put this guy on a stand holding his glider. The bow is well sculpted and comes with this clip so you can attach it to his back, and it works so seamlessly. The Master Sword is shiny and looks gorgeous. It fits into its sheath really easily, and he holds onto it really tight. One of the coolest accessories is this Ascend piece. If you take him apart at the waist and place him and the piece on a flat surface, it looks like Link is coming up through the bottom of whatever you placed him on. Such a fun detail, and it's really charming. Something I really don't like is how the shield works. It's basically unchanged from previous Links, and it just falls apart so easily. The pegs that plug into the shield are really tight, but once it's in his hand, the handle piece pops apart so often I don't even feel like using it half the time. Why are you giving me accessories that you then make me want to not use? This figure needs more hands. Why is there no fist for his new arm? Previous Link figures definitely have this one beat in that area. Here's our new Tears of the Kingdom Link compared to the only other 1/12 Link I have, the Figma Skyward Sword Link. As you can see, this new version is quite a bit taller, honestly maybe too tall, but they were able to cram new joints into this guy that the previous version didn't have, so I'm cool with it. If your last Link figure was the Skyward Sword version, you have to upgrade to this guy. If you're a Legend of Zelda fan or a fan of Tears of the Kingdom, this figure is an absolute must-have. I feel like we don't get Link figures very often, and I doubt we'll get another Figma offering for a while, so I would recommend grabbing this guy while pre-orders are still open and he's available. The DX version to me only feels worth it if you really love the game. The standard version comes with essentially everything you need. As a whole, I think this figure is fantastic, and I am so glad I was able to get my hands on one, but little things like the shoulders really hold this back from being perfect. I really love the Legend of Zelda games, and I'm happy to see them be represented here in a 1/12 scale line. I really think we need more Nintendo figures that are done with this level of care and quality. I'm looking forward to the other figures in the Tears of the Kingdom line and to see what Figma does next. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.